kind of wanted to start, with letting Iowans know, why you're running for reelection.
Yeah. So I'm running for reelection because I want to deliver results for our families, for our farmers, and for our Main Street businesses. Over the last 4 years being in Congress, it's all about figuring out solutions and traveling to all 36 counties, listening to our families and Main Street businesses and to our producers about what's important. And what I've heard over the last 2 years is the number one thing is we got to build the wall. We got to know who's coming in and out of this country. And then number two is the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that all sunsets, and that's going to be a huge hit. And I hear that from so many businesses that they're going to see a $2,000 to $4,000 increase, and our families are going to see a dramatic increase when their child tax credit goes away and their standard deduction. And then finally, we're hearing that inflation, the cost of groceries, the cost of gas, cost of health insurance, that's really affecting our families, and small businesses are feeling the same thing. Their utility bills, their input costs, and our producers from seeds to fertilizer. I mean, this is really hitting hard, and it's hard for our small businesses and producers to make a profit when we have this much inflation.
And so I wanted to start on the southern border a little bit and talk about the policies, that you would support. I know at the presidential level, we're seeing, from Trump, the mass deportations, closing the border, that sort of thing. So just curious, what you would like to see Congress do.
Yeah, so one of the first bills that I supported and helped pass out of the U.S. House was HR 2, and what that was to build the wall, to finish the wall, to know who's coming in and out, to stop catch and release. I mean, this is ridiculous to have catch and release. And number three, to keep remain in Mexico. I've been to the border several times and talking to the patrol over there. They said it's just unbelievable. Here you catch somebody and you have to release them and never to be seen from again. We see this with a bill that I helped pass out of judiciary, the Sarah Root bill. A 21-year-old was killed by an illegal that was drunk driving. Uh, posted bail, never to be prosecuted, went back to his own country. We can't have that. We have to make sure that we're prosecuting illegals and making sure that they have their day in court, and that there can be, for a person like Sarah Root, that justice can be served.
And so one of the things that's top of mind for everyone right now are obviously, the hurricanes that we saw down in Florida. Natural disasters is not something new for Iowans either, with the tornadoes that we saw, the flooding that we saw earlier this year. Right before Congress went into recess, there was a stopgap measure that you didn't vote in favor of. Could you just explain your vote a little bit?
Yeah, so 40 days before an election to have a pass a budget, that's no way to do this. I mean, we can't do that. So I was very frustrated by that. We had all summer, literally all summer, to work on budget bills, and we didn't do it. So I was extremely frustrated. And now when we come back, it's going to be very important that we pass a policy to help some of the disaster areas. Obviously, on our western border from Rock Valley to Spencer down to Council Bluffs and in between, there's a lot of communities that got hit, and they're looking for assistance and help, and that's what has to happen when we get back to Congress.
And so just kind of a follow up on that, there kind of has been some mixed reports on whether or not Congress should reconvene before the election to pass, additional FEMA funds. Where do you kind of stand on that?
Again, I'm talking with leadership. We have to know exactly, we need to know the costs that these last two hurricanes, what happened. And then again, we have to make sure that Iowa's first in line. Obviously, 2 months ago, we had our floods. We have to make sure that we're first, that we've been waiting for some of the dollars from FEMA, and that needs to be taken care of. And that's what I'm right now pushing our leadership and pushing the Homeland Security, that they know that we are first and foremost before everyone else gets in line.
And are you still hearing from Iowans that are still needing that FEMA assistance?
Absolutely. I was just in Spencer, Iowa this past week. We talked about it. There's still a lot of families that are not in their homes again. They're in trailers. We see this in Rock Valley, Hayward, and Cherokee, you name it. We have to make sure that these displaced people have homes, especially now that winter is just around the corner. We have to take care of them, and that's what we're working on.
And so, in regards to the Israel-Hamas war, you've recently said, or you've been saying that the U.S. needs to continue to support Israel. Now that that 1 year anniversary has passed, do you think Congress needs to be doing anything more, or what needs to be done for this war to reach its end?
I'll just say this. We have to stand with Israel. They are our allies. And I was in Israel. I talked with President Netanyahu. I saw what they're doing for relief for the Palestinian people that never gets talked about. All right. I mean, they're providing food, they're providing aid, they're providing all this, but they also have terrorists called Hamas infiltrated in the Palestinian area. All right. So Israel's got to win, and they've got to uproot these terrorists. And that's what I say to our leadership. And we owe, again, we have to stand strong with them.
One thing, when talking with your Democratic opponent, Ryan Melton, he has criticized you on not asking Congress for earmark money for the fourth district when maybe some other Iowa representatives have. Could you explain your decision not to?
Well, again, you think of earmarks, all right? So that means everybody in Congress gets earmarks. This is wasteful spending. You want to control wasteful spending, you get rid of earmarks. This is pork barrel spending, and I'm adamantly against it. I think there's better ways to do it, to reduce our spending and get our $35 trillion budget, fiscal debt under control.
And so then how would you go about addressing some of the concerns from Iowans in District 4 where the bridges are unstable and things like that?
Again, we have grants. There's so many grants. We have the infrastructure grants, and they can call our office. There's a lot of things that we can do to help with incentivizing some of these programs and stuff like that. But just to give flat out dollars to different programs, we see this around the United States, that it becomes a real problem. And we are the taxpayers. We should know where our money's going.
In carbon capture pipelines, I think we talked about this in June as well, but it seems to be a pretty big issue, especially for those in the rural areas where these pipelines could be crossing their farms, and they have concerns about this. Is there anything that you feel you could be doing in Congress, maybe to help some of these landowners?
Well, again, it's a state issue, but I'm always against eminent domain. I go back to the Constitution that, what, we have a right to our property, and the government should not be taking property. If a pipeline wants to be built, it should be between the pipeline and the private landowner if the pipeline goes through that land. I do not think eminent domain should ever be used, and that's where I'll stand. And I think that's very important for everyone to know.
And one of the things that we did see, a little bit different than you would normally see is your GOP opponent from the primary did endorse your Democratic opponent now. What, I guess, kind of went through your head when you saw this happen?
When I saw it, I just simply thought, okay, we know who he is. He's anti-Trump. He's anti-agriculture. He wants to side with the liberal progressives in Brian Melton and the Democrat Party, and that's who this Kevin Virgil is.
And then on the topic of abortion, it's a big issue for Democrats this election cycle. Obviously, Roe v. Wade turned it back to the states. If there was something brought up in Congress, is it something that you would support? I guess either way.
I'll just say this again. I go back to my faith. My faith teaches me that every person is born for a purpose and a reason. We're here on earth for a purpose and a reason. God gave us that purpose, and that's why I'm pro-life.
So would you support, some type of federal, national abortion ban?
Again, I look at it this way, is that I'm pro-life, and that I'll do everything I can to make sure that every person has a purpose and a reason to live.
And as you're, campaigning in the fourth district, what are you hearing is most important to Iowans?
Yeah, traveling my 36 counties and listening, walking up and down main streets, listening to the manufacturers, listening to my farm producers. There's several things. Number one is, the influx of illegals coming in. We need to build the wall. We've got to stop catch and release. We got to keep remaining in Mexico. That's number one. Number two is obviously the cost of inflation right now. the cost of that budget going up in the family, from groceries to gas to insurance. And that small business, the same thing, is that they're seeing that cost of inputs, that utility bill, their health insurance for their employees. And then same thing with farms, the seed, the fertilizer, all this stuff. It's hard for them to even cash flow to make a profit. It's hard for that family to make that budget work. That's what I'm hearing day in, day out when I travel. These are very important things that we got to resolve.
And so you mentioned small businesses. One thing we often hear about more rural parts of Iowa, is declining population, the need for more housing sometimes, all these different issues. How do you, support these small businesses and help grow these more rural areas?
So I was a city administrator of Hall, a small town of 2,500. The main street is so important, and where it starts is the economic engine of our great state, and that is agriculture. When agriculture is successful, our main streets are successful, our schools, our hospitals are successful. So I sit on the agricultural committee. We got to pass that farm bill. We got to make sure we protect our producers, that there's a safety net when it comes to crop insurance and things like that. We also have to make sure that what we find is when a small business has more dollars, that they invest it in their employees or in growth. So that's why we got to keep the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that lowered taxes, that gave a 20% pass through to small businesses. That's so important. That goes away after 2025. And I've been very passionate. I sit on the Ways and Means Committee to make sure that we extend these tax credits for our family, whether it be child care or whether it be that standard deduction. That stuff all goes away if we don't pass extensions. And I know under the Trump administration, they're passionate about this. The Biden and Harris administration said that they want it all sunset. So this is very scary for small
And so in regards to the farm bill, there hasn't been a new one passed in quite some time now. What needs to be done with that? What would you like to see different in the farm bill? If you guys could get one passed whenever you guys come back into Congress.
Well, we have a great farm bill that passed the U.S. Agricultural Committee, which I sit on. We had 5 to 6 Democrats that supported it. Unfortunately, the Senate run by Democrats have not ever created a farm bill. Senator Stabenow, who's head of agriculture from Michigan in the Senate, has not created any farm bill. So we're hoping after the election that we can come together and pass a farm bill. It is paramount that we get this done. I mean, you think about what's happening right now with the commodity prices, with soybeans being around $10, with corn being at $4. I mean, this is crushing to our producers. And then also we have a $43 trillion trade deficit because we're seeing Argentina, Australia, Brazil infiltrating other countries that we used to export to. And now we're left out in the cold. That farm bill is so important to get some of this stuff done.
And so I guess what specifics part of, the farm bill, that you guys had passed that the Senate hasn't taken up, would address some of those issues?
Well, first of all, crop insurance is the number one thing. We got to make sure that we have crop insurance. The reference prices, reference prices are very low right now. The reference price for corn is $3.60. We want to push that up above $4. The same thing for beans. We want to push that reference price up to 10. That's very important. Also, FMD and MAP programs that help the export market, they get doubled in this program. And then the big thing is you got avian bird flu and possible African swine fever at some point coming into America. We've got to make sure we're prepared for African swine fever, but we also have to make sure we identify and help our poultry producers. Where in Iowa, we lost over 20 million birds. Right? This is catastrophic, and that's why this farm bill is so important, and we got to get it passed.
And then just kind of my last thing, Social Security is also, a big concern for a lot of people, potentially not having enough money to fund it in the long run. What would you like to see done about that?
Yeah, you hit it on the head. This is such a big deal. I will say this to all our seniors: I will not touch your Social Security. Will not touch it. But I'll say this: if we do nothing, if we do absolutely nothing, in 8 years there will be a 25% cut to every person that's on Social Security. So we need to act. I sit on the Social Security subcommittee. We're trying to put together a program for new 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds that are getting into the program to change the rules and parameters. But again, we also have to quit the spending Biden and Harris spending. It's costly to our seniors. And we've got to shore up Social Security so everyone has the opportunity that have paid into it that will get it.